The Sorceress's Head. There was once a king who had no children. He was always imploring heaven to send him a child, but all his prayers were in vain. One day he had gone to pray as usual when he heard a voice. "Do you want a boy who will die, or a girl who will flee?" He didn't know what to say, and so he kept silent. He went home, summoned all his trusty and loyal subjects, and asked them what answer he should give. And they answered, "Well, if the boy is to die, that's the same as having no child at all. Ask for the girl. You can keep her under lock and key, and she can't flee." The king went back to his prayers, and again he heard the voice. "Do you want a boy who will die, or a girl who will flee?" "A girl who will flee," the king replied. So 9 months later, the queen gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Many miles outside the city, the king had a large park with a palace right in the middle of it. And he took the baby girl there, and he shut her up with a nurse in a beautiful pavilion prison. Her father and mother rarely visited her, so that she wouldn't think about the city and decide to run away. So they raised her to believe that this was the world, and occasionally some people would come from the outside, which didn't exist when they were gone, because the outside wasn't there. When the maiden was 16, the son of King Giona came by there, and he saw her, and he fell in love with her, and he bribed the nurse with a great deal of money to let him into the palace. Well, overcome with love for one another, the two young people got married without their parents knowing a thing about it. And the nurse was also a priest, I think. 9 months later, the princess gave birth to a fine baby boy, and the next time the king called on her, he was met by the nurse, whom he asked how his daughter was getting along. "Beautifully, Your Highness," replied the nurse. "Would you believe she's just had a baby? I mean, look at her. She looks so wonderful, and healthy, and thin, and all." The king refused to have anything more to do with the girl. Flat out, just said, "Blah, you're not my daughter anymore. You're dead to me." She continued to live in her little pavilion palace prison with her husband and their son. And when the boy reached 15, without ever having seen his grandfather or indeed anything else of the world, he said to his mother, "Mama, I would like to meet my grandfather." "Well, go to his palace then and meet him," said his mother. He rose bright and early, took a horse and a goodly supply of money, and he left. His grandfather made no fuss over him. He hardly looked at him, and he said nothing. Cut to the quick by such a cold welcome, the young man said 3 or 4 months later, took a long time to gather up his courage, or indeed just get over this cold welcome, I suppose. "What do you have against me, grandfather? Why won't you even talk to me? For you, I would go and cut off the sorceress's head." He didn't know why he said that. But there he was, he had said it. And his grandfather looked at him and said, "Well, good, that's just what I wanted. So now you go and you cut off the sorceress's head." If the sorceress heard that, she would probably think what the hell she had done to deserve it, but she didn't hear it. And it is said the sorceress was kind of Medusa. She was so hideous or so powerful or whatever that anybody who laid eyes on her was instantly turned to stone. And the old king was, of course, certain that was his grandson's fate, and so, "You do that, blah, 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 I'll get rid of you, easy way." Good. The youth chose a fine horse, goodly supply of money, and he left. He's very good at that. Choosing a horse, good supply of money, and then leaving. It's excellent with this. I think he's going to do it once more. Along the way, he met a little old man who asked, "Well, where are you going, my boy?" "To the sorceress to cut off her head." "Oh, goodness me. Well, for that you will need a horse that can fly, since you will have to go over mountains swarming with lions and tigers that would devour you and your horse in a flash." "Well, where can I find a horse that flies?" "Well, just a minute. You asked the right man. I'll go get you one," replied the old man. He disappeared, went to his stock of magical flying horses, and returned with one. He keeps them for exactly that purpose. "Now listen to me," said the old man. "You cannot look directly at the sorceress. No staring at her. You got it? Or you will turn to stone. You will be stoned forever. You must watch her in the mirror, which I will now explain how to get." It's probably his cousin who has magic mirrors. But no, it's not quite that. He said, "Walk down the road a little way, and you will come to a marble palace and a garden of flowering peach trees. There you will see two blind women who have only one eye between the two of them, and those women have the mirror you need. The sorceress spends her time in a meadow full of flowers whose scent is alone enough to cast a spell over you. So be careful. Very careful. Beware of it, and look at the sorceress only in the mirror, or you'll be turned to stone, and stone is forever. Good luck." With the flying horse he hurdled the mountain infested with bears, tigers, and snakes, and lions, which all lunged after him, jumping in unison as he flew. It was like a wave in a soccer stadium. He went above and shoo, 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 but they never could reach him. He soared high, and he escaped them. With the mountain behind him, he travelled and finally saw a marble palace in the distance. "That must be the blind women's palace," he said to himself. And these blind women had only one eye between the two of them, and they passed it back and forth to one another, probably giggling and cackling and going, and I. The young man didn't dare knock, but he went for a stroll in the garden while the women ate their dinner, leaving the eye somewhere in peace so they wouldn't by mistake eat it. When they'd finished, they too strolled into the garden, and he climbed the tree so they wouldn't see him. They were in conversation, and the one who had the eye at the moment held it up to glance about her. "Oh, you should see these fine new mansions the king has built," she exclaimed, being a bit of an asshole. "Well, give me the eye, let me look too," said the sister. The woman held out the eye, and the young man reached out from the tree, and he took the eye. "So you're not giving it to me?" said the other sister. "You want to see everything all by yourself? That's so typical of you." "But I gave it to you." "No, you didn't. I don't have it. Where is it?" "I put it right into your hand." And they argued until it dawned on them that neither sister, in actual fact, had the eye. It had gone. And then they said very loudly, "That means there's somebody in the garden who has taken our eye. If this person is here, please give us back our eye, since we've only got the one. And name what you want in return. We'll reward you with it. Anything, except for that eye. It's our only one." "Really?" The youth came down the tree, and he said, "Well, I took the eye. In exchange, you must give me your mirror, since I'll have to kill the sorceress." "Gladly, of course. Whatever you wish, but you have to give it back first, because without the eye we can't find the bloody mirror." So he courteously returned it, and the blind women went into the palace and came back out with a mirror, for which he thanked them and continued on his way. You know what he did? He got on his horse, took a goodly amount of money, and left. On and on he travelled until the air grew sweet with flowers, and the nearer he got to them, the stronger the scent became. He reached a handsome palace in the middle of a meadow full of flowers, and the sorceress was strolling in the meadow. He had meanwhile mounted his horse backward, and looked at her only in the mirror, with his back to her. The sorceress, who was confident of her power to turn people into stone, and wouldn't you be, did not run nor make any effort to protect herself. Facing the other way, looking into the mirror, he rode right up to her, swung his sword around behind him, and after a few tries, he managed to cut off her head. Then he put the head into a bag out of sight. It had dripped a little blood though, and the blood changed into serpents on contact with the ground. And the serpents lunged after him, but he jumped on his flying horse, took a goodly bit of money, and he left. He took a different road home, and passed through a seaport along the way, and besides the sea was a chapel which the youth entered, and in there he found a beautiful maiden dressed in mourning and weeping. At the sight of the young man she cried, "Begone! Begone! If the dragon comes, he will eat you too. I'm here waiting for him since today it's my turn to be eaten. He eats one person alive every day." The young man thought, "Will they cast lots or what?" But he said, "Well, no, beautiful maiden, that's not going to happen. I just killed the sorceress, and now I'm going to rescue you, just for good measure." "Well, it's impossible to kill a dragon like this one." No, don't be afraid. Jump on my horse, we'll take a goodly amount of money, and then we'll leave." "That doesn't sound like a plan," she said. But she jumped up, he helped her into the saddle. And in that instant great din and a splashing was heard, and the youth, after telling the maiden to close her eyes, pulled the sorcerer's head from the bag, and just as the dragon stuck his head out of the water, he saw the sorcerer's head turn to stone and immediately sank to the bottom of the sea. The maiden was the king's daughter, and the king gave her in marriage to the young man, promising to make him his heir if he stayed there. But the youth said, "No, thank you. I already have my own kingdom, and I have to go back." But he took the princess with him and went to his grandfather, who was surprised and not too happy to see him come back alive. "Grandfather, well, I'm back here. I cut off the sorcerer's head, and I went and brought it back to you. If you don't believe me, here, have a look inside this bag." Since he was tricky too, it was probably a family trait that he inherited. So the king opened the bag, looked inside, and immediately turned to stone. Then the young man went back to his parents, and they all came back to the grandfather's kingdom, and lived a life happy and long, and gave me nothing for my song, or indeed for my story. Thank you.